Studies, Barrow Unit, where I teach, and the Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality, a regional lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer organization headquartered in Saint Lucia. And the project is funded by the European Union. So I want us to all feel like family here. One of the activities we do in Livity is called Grounding, and it is really about us learning and sharing, learning from each other, sharing with each other, and that is the format that we want to have here as well, that it is a comfortable learning and sharing environment, and we are going to hope that the technology will be kind to us. I want to start by mentioning also that we will be having an accessibility break. So one of the things that I learned from the Livity Project is about how to make our spaces accessible, and it includes not having a culture and a style of work and overworking where you don't think that you're doing anything well unless you've had a very long, heavy day. So we are going to take a pause at 4:45 p.m., just around there, and we will be screening the first video teaching from the Livity Project, which was directed by my colleague, Leanne Worrell, and you're going to see how awesome that video is. And that's also your 10 minutes to stretch, to get a rest, you know, for those who need to give their eyes a rest, and also for our interpreter who needs a break as well. So, and with that, I'm going to get right into introducing our panel. I'm going to start with Bonnie Leonce is our interpreter. We're very happy to have her with us. She has been with us from the start of the Livity Project. She has packed her bags and traveled with us to do this very excellent work. And I just want to say a little bit about her from the bio that she sent in. So please, I beg your indulgence. So Bonnie is an American Sign Language interpreter by profession and has been so for over 20 years. She holds a BSc degree in ASL English Interpreting with honors from the University of North Florida. And I also want to mention that she's traveled as chaperone and interpreter for Miss Deaf Barbados, Daniel Grenadines, who participated in Miss Deaf International in Las Vegas, and also Miss Deaf World in the Czech Republic. And truncating the bio a little bit, but I do want to say that she is the interpreter for the CBC Evening News in Barbados and has been called upon to interpret in various affairs. And she is also married and the mother of 3 teenagers. So thank you so much, Bonnie, for joining us. I'll go right into our panelists. I'll start with Fernander, who graduated from the Caribbean Institute in Gender and Development in 2011, is a volunteer with United and Strong, Saint Lucian LGBT organization, and she also led coordination of the policy forum under the Livity Project and was the lead coordinator on Livity on behalf of the Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality, and also is someone for whom I have a lot of respect and admiration for the brilliant work and the brilliant coordination of the activity in Saint Lucia. Thank you so much, Fern, and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Rashana Jones, who is a second-year student at the University of the West Indies Cape Coast campus. Rashana enjoys volunteerism and youth advocacy. She did win, she's with the United Young Leaders of Barbados, and I want to make sure I get the title right, that she won a youth award very recently, National Youth Hero of Barbados 2018. And Rashana is also another exceptional young woman, and very happy to have her on our program. So I also want to, we have Roseanne Foster-Vaughan of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, who is a colleague with us on the Livity Project. Again, another brilliant organizer and someone that I feel truly privileged to have known and learned so much from. but I do want to read a bit from her bio. She says of herself that she doesn't hold an associate, bachelor's, or master's degree of any sort, but she openly and proudly states that these accreditations do not define her achievements as a university graduate of life experiences, not only in her work life, but in her short 44 years. She has been able to follow her dream in being an advocate, championing the rights of persons with disabilities. And one of the important pieces of work that Roseanne started in 2008 was the Sexual and Reproductive Health Program for persons with disabilities. Welcome, Roseanne. Roseanne? Moving on to introduce Yoland London of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a community activist for over 20 years, and again, a very singular Caribbean woman. You have to meet Yoland to recognize the community spirit that she embodies and the way in which she is one of the best organizers I have ever seen. If you want something organized well, Yoland London certainly is the person, and she has a history of being the St. Vincent and the Grenadines national female football team manager, chairperson of the Windward Island Women's Football Association, former first VP of the National Youth Council in St. Vincent and Grenadines. So welcome, Yoland, and thank you so much for being with us with the Livity Project, and also we were able to welcome Yoland to the Caribbean Institute in Gender and Development. And our two more panelists, Alexandrina Wong, who is the president of Women Against Rape, and who is also a registered nurse and midwife, practicing in Antigua and Barbuda since 1991. Skilled at NGO management, project management, HIV counselor and tester, and a range of other, another very excellent Caribbean woman doing great service to her community and the wider region. We also have Carol Vasquez, who is with the Grenada Association for Retired Persons. Carol Vasquez is another outstanding community organizer who has also been part of this journey with us on the Livity Project. So welcome to all our panelists, and welcome to all of you who joined us here today. Thank you so much for coming. So without too much more of a delay, I want to take us directly into thinking about both the experience of living through the lockdown measures that were necessary to contain COVID-19, but also what life is like as our communities open up. One of the things we know, we are all here from territories that are very heavily tourism dependent in terms of the Caribbean countries that the Livity Project serves. And we know that tourism as an industry, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the predictions are that, it's going to be at least 2 years of recovery. Already, for example, in Barbados, you have 40,000 unemployment claims. You're looking at nearly 30% of your working population currently laid off or unemployed. I know that in Saint Lucia, for example, already some public sector workers are on half pay, and we can anticipate that more and more Caribbean governments will struggle to be able to pay salaries. Persons who work informally are going to find it a lot harder to make a living. But also we can reflect on how some of the lockdown measures also in many ways targeted the most vulnerable. So in Barbados, one of the first persons to be arrested for breaking curfew was actually a Jamaican woman who was listed as having no fixed place of abode. And she was the first person arrested for that. In many ways, it shows you how that being a Caribbean national in Barbados, being a migrant, and also being homeless produced vulnerabilities prior to COVID-19 that were very much worsened during these measures to contain that pandemic. And similarly, there was also a young transgender woman who was arrested for breaking curfew and also sentenced to 6 months in prison, as opposed to getting bail. Like the majority of the persons who broke curfew were released on bail. So we did see the ways in which those vulnerabilities were multiplied. And I just want to hear from all of you, and I want us to start with, if we could start with Carol, and then we'll have Fern, just reflect on what the experience has been for the communities that you are a part of.
Okay, welcome to everybody. Again, it's so nice to see you all. Well, COVID, I'm proud to say that Grenada has only had 22 cases of COVID-19 here in Grenada. We have had no deaths. But COVID-19 came very suddenly to us. Actually, we could say it caught us by surprise. Many of people were not prepared for it, including government. And the lockdown period was really one of the hardest things for people to understand and to abide by, but yet they did. We went into lockdown as early as, I think, the 26th of March, and business just stopped immediately. But what happened there was a lot of emphasis were put onto persons at work. How is this going to affect them? The shutdown of the transportation, airlines, we had tourists still in the country, but nothing, no emphasis, and you were very rarely hearing anything about what measures were taken for seniors. And we had a problem with regard to seniors having caregivers and seniors having people who came in to dress their feet and their wounds or whatever. But when the shutdown came, people were not allowed on the streets. And so these caregivers were not going to seniors. Then all of a sudden they found out, oh, seniors. So then you had to apply for a pass to actually be on the streets in order to go and see about the senior. But a lot of talk was that COVID-19 really is geared to killing older persons. So there was a built-up fear in a lot of our seniors. And of course, they had relatives, or they have relatives abroad, and they were hearing the numbers of people dying and the numbers of people getting COVID and whatnot. So that brought an anxiety onto them. The other thing was a lot of people were not visiting them because of the restrictions. And you were told that you shouldn't visit them in case you pass the virus on to them. But no measures were taken to ensure how they were going to survive during this lockdown. GARB took the stand, my association, took the stand of trying to make phone calls to find out what was happening with seniors. The first thing we did was we started a telephone buddy program where we took some of the members and we found people who are living alone and became friends with them on the telephone. So we could find out if they had food there, if they had their medication, if they wanted anything in the supermarkets. stuff like that. So we started the buddy program, and that is still in existence, and it's working very well. We had a problem when it came for a little bit of the opening up, and that was when they said you could go shopping. That was not organized. So the first day of shopping for a supermarket, they said that there was senior line and there was ordinary line, but the senior lines extended way past the supermarkets and into the sun. Our seniors, some of them can't stand for long, could not take the pressure of the sun and being out there. So the next time that shopping was open again for seniors, very few seniors came up. The other thing that blocked the seniors of actually going shopping was the restrictions of going into any business place. You needed to have gloves and mask. When the shutdown came, no mask was given to seniors. And even to this day, GAP is doing the research of finding who's got masks, who's got gloves, whatever. So again, there was an area where they were not looked into. So our seniors are suffering very, very silently. GAP has taken a stand just recently because of seniors not going out to buy food. They weren't eating right to start off with, some of them. And with the COVID coming on, the anxiety, the appetite goes. If you don't have somebody there to coach them and say, come on, you have to eat something, nothing would happen. So we started a food drive. This is our 4th food drive. And I'm very surprised that a lot of the private business places have come in with GAP in order to feed the seniors in various communities. Tomorrow, I am distributing 150 bags together with the police because they know where some of the seniors are. And we will be distributing bags to seniors. Another company has come in with me and has said, how can they be of assistance? And that's Rubis Gas. I will be working with Rubis Gas in preparing hurricane kits for seniors, because it's one thing not having the food. We're approaching a hurricane season. We're told that we're going to have a very active season, and seniors are not prepared for it. So we will be working with Rubis Gas in preparing a hurricane kit, which will have torchlight, batteries, some sardines, some disposable bags, a first aid sort of kit, some painkillers, certain things like that that can take them through for at least a week, right? I am hoping that these programs that have been put in place will be even more enhanced just in case we have another outbreak as we did. I think this is showing us that we need to prepare much better for incidents like this, especially to be involving seniors. And for some unknown reason, seniors have forgotten. I mean, it was the school, it was the children, it was the workplace, it was no transportation. People were worried how they're going to the banks. We saw another problem with banks, and our seniors do not want to embrace technology easily, so they do not use the teller machine. And so when we open up now, banking is a bit of a challenge still for seniors, but in the past, it was a social time for them. So when they went to the bank, they met people, they chatted, they knew the girl at the teller and everything. And now we have to change that, and we have to get our seniors more technology savvy. So GAP has a lot of work in preparation for the future because technology is the way that things are going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, for that very robust intervention and for really sharing the way in which, as you quite clearly put it, that seniors were forgotten in the initial lockdown. And we can think about why and what that means and what that says about our community. You also share the ways in which the Grenada Association of Retired Persons strategize from everything to thinking about the social aspect, making sure people have a buddy, but also thinking about food. And I think food is one of the big items on the table when we think about the ways in which many of our Caribbean countries rely on imported food from Miami that we no longer have the money to be able to continue to import, but also the quality of the food, the non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension, and the entire Caribbean region where there is a very widespread prevalence and experience of persons with disability, persons who are elderly, and even now a lot more younger people, for example, with diabetes. Diabetes is really, I would say, I don't want to use alarmist language, but the prevalence rates in the region are extremely high. And so we really need to be talking about food a lot more, and food security and food sovereignty in the region, and also foods that are healthful and are provisions as opposed to our reliance on processed imported foods.
Yes.
And as part of our commitment to justice and to decolonization, to see how central food is to that. So you also mentioned care and the way in which the care that elderly persons need, the care that persons who are living with illnesses, chronic illness need, and how that was not an early consideration. So thank you so much, Carol, for your intervention, and we will turn over to Fern, who will share some experiences from the LGBT community in Saint Lucia and also the wider Eastern Caribbean.
Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see you guys again.
Yeah.
So I am going to share firsthand experience within the hospitality sector because I started working there from last year. So my COVID experience started at in March. At the start of March, management was certain that we were not going to close down because as long as the flights kept coming in, the hotel would always be booked. So we're not going to close down. So between that time and March 22nd, we had a lot of trainings, COVID-19 trainings and seminars in-house. By the 22nd, they told us the hotel was going to close down because flights were not going to come in anymore. The guests which were at the resort we were staying were going to be transferred to a sister resort until they got flights to get back home. So the hotel closed down. They agreed to pay the percentage of the salary certain individuals were getting for 3 months. So we're in the 3 months now. So most people right now are trying to rely on maybe a stimulus package from the government or however means they can get funds. A lot of the LGBT people in Saint Lucia, most of them work in the hospitality sector. So you can imagine most people are unemployed right now unless if they had a side hustle where they had another source of income or family to depend on and stuff like that. In terms of the curfew, well, I struggled with the curfew for at least 5 weeks, the curfew and the lockdown, because I'm always outside. I like to catch my feet. I'm always out. So the starting hours, but I can't stay inside all that time. I'm gonna get cabin fever. I'm gonna go crazy in the house. But as the time went by, I sort of grasped the concept of being in curfew, in lockdown,
Mhm.
in quarantine. Um, I know in terms of the care packages and stuff, United and Strong had put something together to deliver to those who were really in need, members in need in the community. And they had also opened up their safe space. Yeah, pretty much. That's my experience.
Thank you so much, Fern, for sharing that experience of being
Hello, can
a
you hear me?
hotel worker and how you are, managing the fact that for many, the majority of tourism workers, the prospect is unemployment, reduced wages, and also a very uncertain future, not just for workers, but our economies as a whole, which depend on tourism, and which, as Carol mentioned earlier, we are right, the hurricane season has actually already started, predicted to be even more active. And so there's a lot of reason for the panic and fear and uncertainty and anxiety that a lot of Caribbean people feel because people have already lost livelihoods. They're facing the threat of even greater loss. And you're not quite sure what our economies and countries are going to look like. Are we going to privilege the kinds of solidarity and care that Carol mentioned that were important to survival, or are the alternatives being more sort of adjustment and attempts to continue to adjust Caribbean economies in ways that are very detrimental to an economy that is based on care? I'm going to turn over now to Yoland, community activist in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to share her experiences.
Hearing now? Okay, so again, it's nice to see everyone, and I'm really happy to be a part of this meeting and this discussion. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we've had 25 cases of COVID so far. We've had today 23 recovered and only 2 active cases. We have had no deaths. Unlike my other colleagues, we have not had a shutdown at all. So it was, for the most part, business as usual. Schools closed 2 weeks prior to the Easter vacation. And outside of that, everybody was working as normal. Clearly, those within the tourism sector, like the hotels, taxi drivers, eventually, I think we had some issues with the airlines. Well, not issues, but Liat and other airlines, they've decided that they're not flying. And so that is the only reason why our airport was closed, because flights were not coming in. So the persons within the tourism industries, taxi drivers, those directly were affected almost instantaneously, and they're still being affected by the whole COVID situation. I myself, I work within the government, and so I was required to work every day up until today. There are some ministries that would have done rotation, so they would have like 2 days on, 2 days off. Outside of that, we had to work. One of the biggest challenges that I have seen from residents within my community and other communities is that so school closed 2 weeks prior to the Easter, and so as parents or guardian, you still had to go to work. Therefore, there are a lot of times when your children or your child is left almost unattended, or you had to find somebody to look after your children. And one of the negative spill-offs from that, because I read last 2 weeks in the newspaper that the Commissioner of Police, and I feel really passionate about this, they have informed that there have been an increase in reported cases of sexual assault against young people. And it's that demographic, because now, because of the protocols, schools are out, parents have to work, guardians have to work, and there's no supervision as you would like for your children. And so that is one of the things that came up in the media. And I mean, very easily I could understand why that has happened. There's no reason it should, but I see how that could happen. Also, they have reported that there increased cases in cyberbullying as well. So now the children are at home and they're left unattended and they're on social media platforms, etc. And as a result of that, cyberbullying. Now the schools were giving online classes to children. And one of the cries was that some of the teachers were not in a position to even transfer the knowledge that they have through this whole new initiative of using gadgets to teach. So that was a big challenge. A greater challenge was that a lot of the households in St. Vincent, a lot of them do not have internet access, and a lot of them do not even have gadgets. So there are homes where there's one phone, a parent has a phone, and so the parent has to be at work, and so the lessons are sent via that device, and so you don't come home until evening, and it's when you come, then your child or children can access whatever information was sent to them. So that too was a big challenge, and there were a lot of cries about that. I think that the government has since moved to order some tablets for, I think, 3,000 households. I don't think that they're here as yet, but that was one of the way of really trying to assist in that regard. School has since reopened, well, not the entirety, not holistically, on the 25th of May. We have the 5th formers going back because they have external exams, and we have the grade 5 and 6 students going back out to school. And that really is the current situation. It's not, a lot of the children commute to school using public transport because our transportation system is not state-owned. It's private drivers operating their minibuses. And so the children still have to take these buses to go to and from school. So I'm thinking that while we are talking about the whole prevention and keeping, flattening the curve and keeping COVID at bay, still the children are being exposed, commuting to and from schools. I think for me, the youth demographic, which is our focus for my community group, we're really, really concerned about the increase in the sexual assault cases. We're very concerned about that. We are also concerned about the quality of education that the children are getting through this whole online mechanism that is in place. And we are currently, battling our minds on how, as an organization, we can come up with some interventions to really address these two issues. But those are the main ones that we have. The government has so far, in terms of the persons directly in the tourism industry, there are stimulus packages currently being offered to the van drivers. In St. Vincent, you're allowed 18 passengers in a bus. And so now they're saying to them, you can take 15, not a big difference because everybody's still not 6 feet apart in the buses. And so they offer them monthly assistance, I think 300 EC per month for every bus. You have to register to be sterilized. So they do that throughout the day. They are offering care packages to the elderly and vulnerable communities. And these packages mainly primarily is made up of local fruits and vegetables and other ground provisions. So I think that is a good direction that is heading. They have offered stimulus packages from the social sector, those persons who are vulnerable in terms of not working or maybe have several dependents and no other means of providing for them. They are getting monthly assistance as well. I think that we are making some strides generally, but I think that a lot more could be done. And I mean, at the end of the day, I just really hope that as an organization that we would be able to come up really quickly, with some interventions that we can really put in place and put in motion to help our young people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yoland. You raised a lot of very important points there, in particular, thinking about child abuse and child sexual abuse during the lockdown. Well, you say you didn't have the lockdown, so you don't have
No.
you still have the schools closed. And that question of care that Carol mentioned, in thinking about how the care, caregiving and care for the elderly was an afterthought, but also we see how the care work that is largely done by women, there was very little provision for that as schools closed and persons are expected to go out to work, but also the ways in which our education system that was already exclusionary, already very classist, reproducing the class system, leaving more children behind than actually carrying them along, it becomes very difficult to translate online when we have to think about internet access also to the hardware, the software, but also the fact that teachers are not prepared, and this homeschooling actually requires an adult at home who's doing the actual teaching. So anybody who has had to do any teaching during this lockdown period with a child at home, and I have, you are doing the teaching. Some schools are sending assignments for the children to complete, and that is the extent. There's no instruction. So it's only possible if there is somebody there who is doing that care work and that teaching unpaid. As my best friend said to me, I have become the personal assistant for a 5-year-old. I have to check her email. I write a list of what she has to do for the day. What are the priorities? I am printing out things, having her do her work and taking a photo or a video and uploading it. I have become a personal assistant for this 5-year-old, staying on track of her email and her schedule. So thank you so much, Yoland. We are at that point in time where we are going to take our accessibility break. So please feel free to get up and stretch, and we are going to have the lovely staff at ECADE are going to show you the first Livity teaching that has some familiar faces. So you can stay with us for the next 10 minutes, but we will be taking a break. So Kenita, can you go ahead and have that video play while Kenita is setting that up? I just want to say hello, a shout out to some of the persons who joined in. I'm going to go through the participants list and see who's here. You can also, in the chat, you can let us know which countries are represented. Amina is here. Thank you so much, Amina, who is working with the Women's Voice and Leadership Project. I also see my colleague from Case Hill, Erin Kamagisha, Andrea Baldwin, who also graduated from the Institute for Gender and Development Studies in Tabara Unit with her PhD. Angeline Jackson, welcome. Students from my class are also here, so welcome Charlene. Colleagues from the Nita Barra unit, the head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nita Barra unit is here, Dr. Let Me Rock, welcome and thank you so much for being with us, as well as Daniil Bob, my colleague. The Frida Fund has joined us, First Floor of Saint Lucia. Whenever you're ready to play the video, Kenita, I'll be quiet. Okay, so this is our first offering from the shop in Barbados. We have another video we'll be launching shortly. You don't have any sound, Kenita?
Can I know what's happening with the internet? But my phone got disconnected. Oh, incorrect, right? Wait, it's connected. Get yourself organized. Not like that. And you need to put on something else. Go.
It would be persons who is just ignorant and really and truly they wouldn't bring any negative comments to me. They would do things like, look, they probably might offer some sort of a pity reaction, and you know they would probably, let's say for instance, I would be walking with somebody and they would ask the person who I'm walking with, is he blind? Is he this? And you know, and I would be like, okay, then well I'm right here. If you want to know something, you could ask me. You understand? So this is the only thing I face. But I mean, generally, everybody just see me as who I'm supposed to be seen as.
I agree with you. It's what you bring to the table. What other you bring to the table, you're going to get respected for it. If you bring a negative vibe, you know that you're disrespectful. If you bring a positive vibe, it's always kind of respect who you are. Yeah. You know, it's okay for me. I believe a lot in human rights. That all of us are equal. All of us are entitled to the same rights across the board. But it's just that when such marriage, I wanted to have a family, have a child. And then we're so quick we wanted it to go out. And people would say, but when you adopt? When you adopt a child? You know what I said? I don't know about that because I said that when you go to authorities, the first thing they're going to say is, wait, you don't have to have a disability. You have a disability.
Welcome your
Oh,
child.
what would you want me to tell you? You can take care of a child. So that tells me off right away.
Yeah.
The closest thing that I've ever done to adopting is a cat. A couple of years ago, this little kitten came up with that. And I said to my husband, we have to feed him. And he said that well, if you feed this kitten,
He's gonna stay.
it's not going to go in. You know? I said, no, we cannot take it away. We have to give it milk. And it stayed there for 8 years. And that was a great source of comfort for me. It teaches me that before him, I would have never learned. For instance, when my husband used to travel, we said, okay, because of the cat, we can't travel together anymore. One of us has to stay home
to take care
and
of him.
take care of this cat. And you know what that is? If I can do all of that for a cat, imagine what I could have done for a child.
That is true.
Oh. I think that society really puts a lot on you. And you have to be constantly fighting against this stigma.
And the discrimination.
And it's so clear. It really isn't fair. It's so unfair. It's not going to be all negative. There has to be positive. What is the positive that you found in your journey?
In my journey,
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your accessibility break. And we did share the link to the entire first teaching video. We have a teaching tool and set of group discussions if you want to use it in community groups. We have a very extensive tool that accompanies the video that allows you to talk about a range of different things, including sexual and reproductive health and rights, embodiment, accessibility. You can feel free to contact us at the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nusa Barra Unit, and we will share our resources for how to use the video with us. And we thank you so much. We've ended with Roseanne on the video, and we're now going to turn over to Roseanne Foster-Vaughan of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, who will give some reflections on the experiences of persons with disabilities during the lockdown period that we had here in Barbados, but also thinking about the way forward. Roseanne?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. I am representing the Barbados Council for the Disabled, so I want to speak from their perspective. But let me share a little bit before I get to that perspective. Now, the question is, has COVID really impacted you as a disabled community? I feel personally that it has compounded the challenges that we face as persons living with disabilities. Why do I say that? For instance, for a person that is blind who needs to be getting from point A to point B, because of the protocols, the 6 feet standing apart, they can't have anybody to guide them if they're going up to do the shopping or the biking. Another issue we face is for us independent persons with disabilities who like to get out there and do it on our own, do our own shopping or whatever. We're faced with the problem of, hey, we can't do this anymore. So we have to depend on others to do it for us. And if the chance is that that person that we're asking to do it for us is not trustworthy, it means that, hey, we're going to be taken advantage of in that format as well. For us, for us parents who may be living with a spouse that has lost their job, obviously there's going to be a cut in income. And for some of us who may get a benefit, you know that we're going to, some of us will face the problem of that spouse wanting to take all benefit away from us. Because of close proximity living in the same space, they may arise violence against us, and we don't have anybody to communicate with to say that, hey, we're being victims, we're being abused. So that is another issue that we face. For parents having children with a disability, that's another issue because you might not be able to go out and leave your children unattended to work. So then again, what happens to those children? That's another issue that they're facing. All in all, I can say that it leads to a lot, personally, for me, it leads to a lot of emotion in my wanting to be the independent individual that I really am. So COVID has really done that to us. But on the plus side, in terms of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, what we're doing is, because of the fact that when we got a lockdown, our government allocated specific days for the alphabet days to go shopping. What they did for us is they allocated a specific date, 2 specific days for us to do our banking and our shopping. And that was on Sundays and Tuesdays. So what the Barbados Council for the Disabled did is they made available their accessible vehicles so that anyone that had a disability and needed to go shopping, they just call on us and they book the bus. And what they did is they were entitled to bring along assistant to assist them in terms of shopping with them. It was only for a very small nominal fee so that we could help with putting diesel into the vehicle. Because also very fortunate in that we were given a lot of care packages to give to our membership. So we have care packages coming from entities that the Latter Day Saints, which is the Mormons. We had our Ministry of Empowerment. They designated some packages for us to give out to our membership. And what we did is we contacted the presidents of our members' organizations and we asked them who within your membership is vulnerable on maybe is person in the house working, and we allocated those packages to them. And in so doing, we came up with the idea that we wanted to look at. We created a food distribution program whereby this can be an ongoing project because COVID is not going to go away anytime soon. And we need to be sure that all members, as well as other persons that we know with disabilities, we put them on all this to get the packages as well. Two good things that have come about as a result of COVID, and I'm hoping that we can wait on these two good things, is that we realized that the Grenadines hospital, they have been delivering medication free of charge to those that have to get medication. And we as a council, we're always advocating that the disabled needs to be empowered to be able to work, employment. I know that we're seeing so much working from at home. It goes to show that, hey, that persons with disabilities can be employed. You know, they don't have to come to your physical plant, but they can stay at home and be employed by you and be very productive. So we're hoping that in this whole lockdown situation, that employees get to see that, hey, this is the area that we can open up for persons with disabilities. I cannot think about anything else right now. Thankfully, with the diagnosis of persons, we haven't heard that any of persons with disabilities have been diagnosed. I don't think that any in the 7 cases that have passed away, I cannot say that any of them are persons living with disabilities. Yes, they might be elderly, but other than that, I cannot say that we've lost any one of our persons to COVID. And I'm hoping that it remains this way. Yes, we had a recent diagnosis of 4 as early as yesterday. Apparently, these 4 were, we had a special flight that brought in people from New York and Florida who were stranded, and this flight brought them into Barbados. They're Barbadians, and they had 4 of them were tested yesterday. But other than that, I think, and I'm hoping that we've reached our curve, but no one can tell, no one knows. So all we can do is keep safe, be a brother's keeper, and look out for each other. And that is what the council tries to do on a day-to-day basis. We will close initially because of the curfew, but from Monday on, we have fully opened our doors once again. And I know that there are persons that would want to know that they can reach out to us, and that's what we're here for. We're trying to have an open door policy whereby we can help wherever possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. And I think one of the points you made for me that is so critical is the way in which the responses to COVID-19 have revealed the existing ableism, and particularly around employment. As you pointed out, you know, so clearly, the way in which employers would shut persons with disabilities out of employment around needing them to be at work, physically present, face to face, no working from home. Working from home was not possible, but suddenly with COVID-19, apparently it's possible for, you know, everybody, you know, can work from home. And so in many ways it exposes the fact that these accommodations that are now being made for everybody else could have been made all along for persons with disabilities, so that everybody can have a place in our economies, in our societies, and be able to make a living like all of us need to do. You also mentioned, for example, violence and violence against persons with disabilities, including, you know, economic violence and the ways in which at the intimate partner level and even around questions of care, that whole, you know, the way in which there's that potential for abuse and experiences for abuse, particularly in times when people are spending more time together, but also when so many people are economically vulnerable and the stresses that that places at the level of the family and also in terms of partnerships. And one of the other interventions we made that for me was so important is the way that certain forms of care and solidarity, and in particular caring work, cannot be done virtually and cannot be done with physical distancing. You know, care is something that is very intimate, and we need to think through and to strategize around how that very vital care that involves closeness and intimacy needs to be considered. We cannot carry everything online. We absolutely cannot do early childhood education online. And we also cannot deliver certain forms of care online. So we're going to shift now to our final two panelists. I'm going to turn over to Alexandrina, and I want you, Alexandrina, not just to share experiences, but I also want you to take us forward towards, having heard the other interventions, what is the kind of future that we want, and what should we be doing to bring that into being? So we're going to start with Alexandrina of Women Against Rape, Antigua and Barbuda. Are you there, Alexandrina? Okay, we're not hearing Alexandrina. No. Yes, okay. So now we're seeing. Not hearing. We're not hearing you. I can see you very clearly, but we're not able to hear. So what we're going to do while you get some assistance with the audio is that we're going to pass that question to Rashana Jones of the United Youth Leaders of Barbados to take us forward into visioning and thinking about what is the kind of future that we want and what is required to get us there.
Thank you, Dr. Haynes. Similarly to the situation for other Caribbean countries, it's the same basically for Barbados, with what Yoland would have mentioned in terms of the increase of sexual violence against, especially young people, in terms of the sexual abuse within homes. Additionally, looking at the unemployment rates, and we know a lot of young people usually come out of school and go straight into the tourism industry, and that high percentage of unemployment, thousands of persons who filed for NIS recently, those figures are also representative of the amount of young people who have lost their jobs. And this creates some level of uncertainty for persons who are looking to graduate or persons who are already seeking employment to basically help with their household and the bills and different things like that. Additionally, though, it would have been mentioned before in terms of the online education, but it really pains me because I had a discussion with other young people about it, and it pains me that, you know, we are talking about quality education, but quality education includes it being accessible to all persons, right? And unless we are able to ensure that persons have internet access and a computer or a tablet to really, you know, do their schoolwork, a lot of persons are going to be left behind. And you see that now in the class system, because a lot of persons who work on basically short change, you know, pocket change, their children are the ones who are facing the brunt of this. Additionally, when you look at it as well, a lot of young people have to take care of their siblings. And in this regard, it is hard to do your work, have your exams, complete your exams, but still help your brothers and sisters and nephews with their schoolwork and make sure that it's submitted on time. And what I've really seen, and personally as well now, this COVID-19 has exacerbated the mental health issues, especially in young people. And not being with your friends and having that physical support system really have been a burden on the mental health of a lot of young people. And I think a lot of people don't recognize as well that even the situation in the United States now with the killing of George Floyd has had a great impact on the mental health of young people. Even myself, I was doing the exam and I just said, let me go and look online to see what's going on. And all you could see is, the violence and everything else. And I had to take a break. I literally had like a little meltdown, to be quite honest. And sometimes as young people, I have been interacting with my other peers. Sometimes you just have to turn off your phone, just take a break from social media for a while because it could be taxing on our mental health. Looking at the way forward, I really think that we must look at being our brother's keeper, as Roseanne mentioned, because in a climate of and in the instance of COVID-19, a lot of people won't be able to really survive without a community. So although we are physically distancing, we still need to carry on this social interaction because that's very important. And from UYLB, we are looking to transition, to online platform to engage young people. And what we have done is to create this sense of checking in, so that we check in on our members and persons in our community who don't have persons around and feel a bit isolated, and then mental issues could really exacerbate the situation. Additionally, I think as a region, because Barbados, Saint Lucia, we as a Caribbean face similar challenges. And in order for us to address these challenges, we must look at it at a regional level also. So in terms of economically how we move forward, I think we need to really tap into the institution that we have there, CARICOM and CSME, and see how these institutions can work to our benefit in a time where the region is somewhat isolated, the Caribbean is somewhat isolated from the international arena at this point in time, and look to see how we can help each other and use the institutions which have been already implemented to our benefit. I also would have had some discussion with other young people, and it really is a concern for a lot of young people as well, that tourism is the main source of foreign exchange for a lot of Caribbean countries. And this calls for a lot of diversification of our economy. We need to look at different ways to maximize our resources around us in terms of renewable energy. The sun that we have that we're complaining all about, and the wind energy, we have to look at these different ways that we could use our resources to really better our situation. But as time move forward, I really hope that, we could come together as a community at the domestic level, but also regionally at a level of CARICOM to ensure that the way forward, does not leave anybody behind and is inclusive to those in the lower income bracket, those in the disabled community, those in the LGBT plus community. So that is my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashana, for that intervention. One of the things you mentioned about care for siblings, for me, was very, very significant, considering the way in which we have not resolved the unpaid care work question. And this is just to let you know that we'll be inviting you shortly to share some results of some research and policy recommendations around that. But that really, when the unpaid care work is not addressed, you mentioned the fact that it puts children at risk for abuse, that it is a violation of the rights of children, but there's also a way in which girls in particular get then pressed into caring for siblings, and the ways that that will also impact their own education as well. Thank you as well for putting on the table the question of our mental health and our well-being in these very uncertain, anxiety-inducing times when so many of our people are unemployed. And that call for regionalism, for solutions, solidarity and regionalism solutions that are domestic and community-based, but that we also see our community as a Caribbean community, and how we can move our Caribbean towards societies and economies that are not so much dependent upon tourism. And that take into account as you talk about solar energy and renewable energy, just thinking as a whole, the way in which the gender inequalities that you mentioned and the economic injustice is also very much related to questions of ecological justice and how we exist here in the Caribbean space, small, open, and vulnerable as it is. We are going to give way to our final speaker, Alexandrina Wong of Women Against Rape in Antigua. Let's hope that Alexandrina has been able to resolve the issues with the audio and that she can also share some reflections and some visioning for the way forward. Alexandrina? Alexandrina, any luck with the audio? You can always leave us a message in the chat if the, so Kimberly from Grenada, welcome Kimberly, thank you for being here. Is saying that maybe your volume might just be very low, so I'm not sure if there's anything that you can raise or turn up for us to be able to hear you a bit better. Currently your mute is muted, your mic is muted, sorry. So if you can unmute and let's see if we can hear you. I am hearing a little something, but I'm not actually hearing your voice. Okay, so it seems like we are coming close to a close of what has been a very critical, engaging discussion that has put a lot of issues on the table, a lot for us to work on as we move forward as the Livity community, but also as we take these concerns and make sure that we are also reaching the ears of policymakers, but continuing the good work that you've already been doing outside of those structures with your communities. So I just want to give all of our panelists, starting again with Carol and then Fern, an opportunity to give us one final word, literally, because we have 4 more minutes left. So as we close out, I can hear you. Is that Alexandrina?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead. I think we can hear Bonnie. You can hear? Bonnie can hear just a little. Okay, go ahead.
All righty. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there, but basically, I just wanted to preface my remarks by saying, if we want to be a society that preaches freedom, free thinking, and equality, then we have to take a big look at what we teach youth in arguably the most important age that ultimately shapes the foundation of who we are. But even at that stage, the spatial power and imbalance in the way we sit, girls prim and proper, boys with the man squat. So that speaks volumes of where we start and where we can go. So for women as Homo sapiens, possessing unique anatomical and physiological attributes and ideologies, that enable functionality in a variety of settings. What has been their experience? So based on those expected roles, we looked at agency, autonomy, and access, how ideas about women's bodies in the United States and elsewhere are socially constructed, and how those social constructions can be used to control women's lives, and how women attempt to resist those forces. What happened during COVID? Few benefits, lower wages, and limited protections, less liquidity to respond to emergency, decreased access to affordable sexual and reproductive and other health services, conflict associated with shared housework, care of aging relative, and also the community. The consequences, some of them were mentioned by my former colleagues. Of course, there's a toll on mental health, and the level of production and productivity of women dropped considerably. Imaging, just future. The big question for us as an NGO, how do we reach those at the back of the line? How do we reach those who have been unemployed in a COVID-related manner and prior to COVID-related and are not receiving any furlough? The three categories that our government chose to focus on during the lockdown, and by the way, we're still under some curfew with extended hours. The three groups were women with children, disabled persons, and the elderly. So those who were in the reproductive age group and didn't have children were left out of the equation. The process in which the food assistance was given, there were a number of questions that were asked about it. So again, how do we get to those at the back of the line? And we would like to suggest that we reskill our advocates at the community level, that there's intersectional alliances and networking, solidarity regionally and internationally, and of course, state accountability. State accountability to challenge those areas as to why certain groupings are being left out of the equation, and why in many instances, NGOs were not called to the table for the national planning to address the COVID-19 pandemic. State accountability in how women are looked at, how women are treated prior to COVID, during COVID, and what is going to happen after we have sort of leveled off. Some countries didn't lock down, but we locked down. And so that puts an immense pressure on women and families alike. How do we reach those at the back of the line? And we re-emphasize, reskill our advocates. We have learned that technology plays a vital role in our lives. That's one area we can tap into. Intersectionality was addressed during the video, and I would like to say congratulations for the video that we saw. And the other area, how can we use the media to our best advantage? I know Hillary is there and listening. Hi, Hillary. How can we use the media to our best advantage? And let us continue to strengthen the solidarity among common issues so we can have one voice in the region. And let us always continue to hold our states accountable for the life and livelihoods of women in our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandrina. I want to say that everything is always as it should be. I had you as our second last panelist, but you really were supposed to be the one to deliver the final word. And you really did it well and took hold of that responsibility with the severity that was required, providing for us a very excellent overview and analysis, and also a call to action to the fact that we do need our community-based organizations or non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and networks of solidarity domestically, nationally, regionally, as the way forward with gender justice really as a pillar. And also to, you mentioned that Hillary Nicholson was here, so also shout out to you, Hillary, and thank you for joining us as well. Alexandrina, you provide the perfect sort of closure. It was so well said, the way you are closing us off and also taking us forward. So I now want to invite everybody who wants to participate to give us just your one word that you are going to take forward after today's discussion, just one word. And I'll invite our panelists to say theirs, but anybody else who wants to share their word can put it in the comments. And it is literally just one word because, you know, we are running out of time. It has been short and sweet. And, you know, short is often very sweet. We've been accustomed to like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours Zoom meetings as part of how we're managing our anxiety and trying to prove that we are productive and we deserve to have our jobs by, you know, subjecting each other to very long meetings. But here we're keeping it short and sweet because we, you know, we value and respect each other's time, and we also know that taking a break is also part of making our spaces accessible. So we're going to start with Carol, and then Fern, Yoland, Roseanne, Rashana, Alexandrina to give us their words.
Okay.
Carol.
I am just seeing the importance of intergenerational. I'm just seeing that so big. I am working with some youth, and this is where I am seeing the change has to come, especially to aid seniors. Okay, so that's my take. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that word, Carol.
Yes.
Fern, your
One word, strength.
Yoland. Yoland is muted while she's giving us her word.
Sorry, my word is solidarity.
Solidarity. Thank you. Roseanne.
My word would be inclusion. Inclusion. Because all of us need to be included in this whole process in order to go forward and in order to make a difference. So it would be inclusion for me.
Thank you, Roseanne. And apologies for the ice cream van you're hearing in the background. The ice cream van comes out every day, all through lockdown. Apparently, the curfew did not apply when we had 24 hours curfew. That is one thing that has been constantly going. Rashana.
My word is open-minded.
Thank you. And Alexandrina to give us the final word.
Transformational leadership.
Transformational leadership. Thank you. And I see in the chat so many of you from across the region. I see Vidya from Guyana, so many old friends and lots of new names that I hope that I will get to know and get to meet. But I'm seeing the word care from Jason Smith, motivation, reinvigorated. And I really hope that this was a session that can serve to reignite the Livity Project and the crucial work that we have to do ahead, including reimagining just how we do our work. We had a lot of plans for visiting each other in our respective countries across the Eastern Caribbean. Perhaps a lot of that regional travel that was already so difficult, already in many cases very inaccessible, is probably going to be even more difficult and more expensive right now. So we do have a lot of work visioning and revisioning and moving forward. But as my colleague Leanne Worrell mentioned, we have hope. So thank you so much for joining us today. I will circulate via email the follow-up forum that will look at unpaid care work. You're definitely hearing the ice cream ban now for sure.
Yes.
Yes, right? Because I find myself having to talk over it. But thank you so much for being with us, and we appreciate you. We have 55 strong on this conversation. Sincere gratitude to the staff of the Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality, and to Kenisa Plaki for all the work organizing and putting this together. Thank you to our panelists. We could not have asked for a better group of you to really share experiences, analyses, and visions for the way forward. Thank you to Bonnie Leonce, who is our interpreter extraordinaire. And thank you to every single one of you who joined us here on Zoom. I know now there's like 1,000 other Zoom meetings that you could have been a part of. Every day is another webinar, but you chose to be with us, and we really appreciate it. Thank you to my colleagues as well at the Nitabara unit, and to the Barbados Council for the Disabled, our partners on this project. That's it for me. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Dr. Rock. Thank you for coming. Oh, I was just saying thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. Bye, everybody, and continue to be safe.
Yeah. Bonnie, you're already at CBC? Oh, you have to go do that now.
I have to go to Elara Court.
I love that you just sang that for me. I really appreciate it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I was understanding.
The Prime Minister has a statement at 7 o'clock, so I have to go to Elara Court and then rush to CBC. So, you know, yeah. But I'm home right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we will not keep you any longer. Thank you again.
That's okay. Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Isa. Hi. How are you?
Excellent. Yes, really enjoyed it. And you had some great people there. You made me realize, Tanya, the